Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Lauren Miller, and I'm the festival producer of Houston Fringe Festival's 13th season, a program of the Pilot Dance Project. Welcome to evening 6 of the Houston Fringe Festival. This year, we are digital to ensure that our artists and patrons remain safe during this pandemic. On behalf of our festival director, Adam Castaneda, I would like to thank the board of directors for their support in all of the Pilot Dance Project's programming. The 2020 program is made possible by support from Texas Commission on the Arts and DanceSource Houston's Groundworks grants. For those of you who are craving in-person performances, I'd like to remind everyone that tomorrow night's closing event, Anything Goes, will be a socially distanced live showcase held at the newly constructed Pet Outdoor Theater in the Heights. There are still tickets available, and they can be purchased at houstonfringefestival.org under the Events tab, or you can click on the link in the comments. We have an exciting and unique lineup for you as we are presenting the first ever Storytelling on the Fringe performance. Created out of a want to expand the festival's programming beyond the performing arts, this evening will feature a new reading series with an emphasis on elevating speculative fiction and poetry. Each entry was adjudicated by a panel of writers representing 3 Houston-based literary organizations: WriteSpace, DeFunkt Magazine, and Texlandia. Tonight, we are joined by 5 writers who have been selected to present their works for you. Prior to each performance, I will announce the writer and a short biography. The order of tonight's lineup has been chosen at random and will conclude by the announcement of the winning story. 2 of the writers will be reading 2 submissions, so you will be hearing a total of 7 pieces tonight. Without further ado, I'd like to present to you our first writer, Margo Stutts Toombs. Margo is a writer, an internalist humorist, a performance artist, and a filmmaker who is no stranger to fringe arts. After having performed in both the Austin and the Houston Fringe Festivals, we're so excited to have her back. Please join me in welcoming Margo.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. The first piece I'm going to read for you is a flash fiction piece called Magic Cookies. Okay, can you see me? All right. Loretta was spent, breathless. She had just had the best sex of her life with Jack, her husband. He was amazing, a hungry beast. He found erotic places that had been hidden for too long. The night was everything she had ever hoped for. She wished she had the strength to cover his face with the pillow and end him. 2, maybe 3 weeks before, Loretta dragged herself and bags of groceries through the front door of their home and plopped on the sofa. "Hi, hun, how was your day?" droned Jack. His habitual greeting each evening. Eyes soft focused on the TV. Sports again. The current opiate of the people, at least male people. Okay. Loretta's response was equally bland. "What's for dinner? What do you want?" "I don't care." She scooped up the groceries, schlepped to the kitchen, threw dinner together, joined Jack on the sofa. After a couple of hours, Loretta ambled to bed alone. Jack would follow once she had fallen asleep or pretended to sleep. This broken record was their routine 6 days a week. Saturday, however, was date night. Paint the Town Red had a new meaning these gray days. After months in quarantine, people were turtles, cautiously sticking their heads out of their homes. Most businesses were still boarded up. Many entertainment venues closed. An evening out consisted of a movie in an old cinema with open windows and dinner from a food truck. Not a dream celebration, but something to lift the ennui. And it was on one of these outings that they noticed a sign, "Coming soon, Moose's fortune telling and magic cookies. It hung outside a gaudy little shop, painted without regard to a color scheme or community standards. Wow, look at that, noted Loretta. Of all the businesses that need to open, why would anyone start a goofy shop like that? Jack was neither interested nor impressed. But Loretta was. She hungered for a little fun with the side of magic. Loretta walked past the shop every day after that Saturday. She always strolled past during the golden hour when the afternoon sun paints the town amber, turning every street into a movie in sepia. Inside the shop, Musa noticed the melancholy woman gazing in. Musa was an odd creature. Porcelain skin as thin as paper and completely smooth. Not a hair or imperfection on her. One might think she was a former cancer patient, but her eyes were bright forest green, and in them was no sign of former pain or suffering. Musa wrapped herself with silks and satins, every color of the rainbow and more, much more. That afternoon, she cracked the door. Hello, dear. Come in. I sense a great curiosity about your future, Musa crooned. The sound of Musa's voice was hypnotic. Loretta couldn't resist the invitation. Sit here. Musa motioned her to an overstuffed chair. Would you like some tea? Loretta could only shake her head. After setting the tea down on the plush ottoman, Musa rested her hand on Loretta's chest, where creature hearts beat. Loretta felt some static electricity from Musa's hand, but she couldn't move away. Oh, you carry so much sadness. Feeling suddenly known, Loretta wept. You know, dear, I don't really tell fortunes. I have that on my sign to entice customers. People are curious, yes? Loretta trembled. I don't tell fortunes, but I can feel wishes, desires, longings. You want love from your husband, yes? For the first time, Loretta looked into Musa's eyes. She felt herself pulled into a forest, lush and ancient, untouched by humans. I'm going to make you a batch of my magic cookies. Come back tomorrow. They are delicious and guaranteed to make your biggest wish come true. The next day, Loretta returned to Musa's shop for her order. Now be careful with these. Make sure your husband eats only one per day. Overindulgence can lead to some side effects, Musa warned. Side effects? Loretta was nervous. Nothing serious, dear. Too much of a good thing can have consequences, yes? Loretta stepped a little livelier than usual on her way home. She believed in Musa's magic. After dinner, Loretta brought Jack a cookie with his evening tea. Jack examined the pastry covered with iridescent glitter. What kind of cookie is this? It's magic. Do you like it? Loretta feigned nonchalance as she watched Jack's face soften and his lips form a sexy smile. She was apprehensive and very excited. It's delicious. He looked at Loretta as if she were a fudgesicle. Let's go to bed. I'll get the dishes in the morning. The next morning, Loretta awakened to the aroma of breakfast. She felt like a prize pony who had been ridden by a skillful jockey all night long. She slid out of bed and ambled to the kitchen on noodle legs. There in the late morning light, Jack was creating a gourmet breakfast. Wow, those cookies are magic, Loretta grinned. After breakfast, they went for their morning walk. Several previously boarded up storefronts were open again, as if they had never closed. There were people out, happy people. Loretta feared she was looking at wishes fulfilled by Moose's magic. Jack didn't seem to notice any difference. When they got to Moose's shop, Jack perked up. There's that cookie shop. Let's go in. Jack moved too fast for Loretta to stop him. Business was brisk at Moose's fortune-telling and magic cookies. Is this where you got my treats? Musa caught a glimpse of the lovebirds. She parted the crowds. How do you like my cookies? Jack gushed about her baking. Loretta was quiet, afraid to look into Moose's eyes. Back home, Jack searched for the cookies. He found the box with the sparkling gems inside. He ate 2 of them. Loretta felt sick as he stalked her. Jack didn't want to hurt Loretta. He had an intense desire to please her. After an eternity of sex with Jack, Loretta was breathless. She was tired. He was wired. They had been on an orgasmic roller coaster. It was the most erotic experience of her life. Loretta wished she had the strength to cover his face with a pillow and end this new Jack. She didn't want to kill him. She just wanted him back, without cookies. Thank you.
Thank you, Margo. Margo will be reading a second piece later tonight. And now I'd like to welcome JT Morse to the screen. A multi-genre writer, Morse pens everything from corporate web content to deeply heartfelt essays, from award-winning horror fiction to eye-catching ekphrastic poetry. Please join me in welcoming JT Morse.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here tonight. Thank you guys for inviting me, and goodness, with such a wonderful group of other writers. I'm really excited to hear as many pieces as I am to read. So as with Margo's story, my flash piece, this first flash piece, is about what could possibly happen after you do what the couple did in Margo's piece. So maybe there's a theme here. Birth of Sister 52. With each agonizing push, sweat pours down my forehead and gathers in the corners of my lips. My tongue flicks out to taste the salty pools, grasping at the flavors of life. Gray wisps of hair fall into my eyes, and my pain-riddled arthritic fingers grip the edge of the hopper's bench seat. My bare heel dents the inner panels of the cab's portside door. I don't have much time. My sister replicant's emergence is imminent. As I press record on the Vidmon screen, an explosion blasts just off the vehicle's starboard side. The hopper banks sharply. I tip forward toward the filthy floorboards of the stolen auto cab, inhaling the sense of dried vomit, ionic battery emissions, and something I can't place, but that reminds me of earthly mushrooms and mosses. Luckily, the force shield holds and we stay the course. Thank the creators. I take a deep breath and close my CRISPR-enhanced eyes. On the exhale, I open them and stare as reassuringly as I can into the screen mounted on the dashboard. Tavalia, there's no need to cry. Do your best to suppress your fears. I'm your predecessor, Sister 51. You are 52. Another detonation, this one directly below the belly of the cab. It causes the artificial gravity booster to flicker, and for 2 minutes and 12.8 seconds, everything floats freely in the fuselage. The weightlessness eases the agony raging deep within my abdomen. My body begins to relax, reminding me of floating in the warm waters of the Arctic lakes back on Mother Earth. My time on the home world was brief, merely days, but a blessing given the trajectory of my sister lives. I longed to stay in the peaceful reminiscence indefinitely, but the booster and reality resumed their responsibilities, and I crashed with a squelching thud onto the thinly padded bench once again. I muster a half-hearted squeeze of my uterine muscles, then cough a bit of bloody sputum into my age-lined palm and urge myself to hold on. I can do this. I was born to do this. After 2 more deliberate pushes, I pause and return to the delivery of my message for Sister 52. There are nutrient pouches scattered around the hopper. Drink them. They'll sustain you for the journey and increase the effectiveness of your rapid cellular growth. I know you feel like you're alone, but you aren't. I am with you. We all are with you. My cheeks moisten further and tears mingle with sweat as the events of the past 96 hours flash before my eyes. Despite the current pain and my fears of the forthcoming transference, I harbor a dimly lit beacon of gratitude for the creators, particularly for their foresight in incorporating such complex memory strains into our genetic makeup. Although most memories are lost in the transition phase, the basics of the mission and involuntary nature of vital life functions remain. Genius. As regenerative hominids, the lives of missionaries span a mere 4 Earth days, productive adulthood achieved swiftly. This serves everyone's purposes effectively, I suppose. Listen to me, young one. You are the last of us. We were only given 52 cycles with which to complete our task. The hopper will reach the orbital outpost. I pause, gasping for both the air and the courage to go on. Within 3 hours. I've timed it perfectly. You'll have 93 ticks for completion of the mission. You can do this. We know you can. A final contraction tears through my abdomen, releasing the newborn from her sac of fertilization and fetal growth. With a shaky hand, I press the continuous replay button on the dashboard. Satisfied with the message I've left, and confident that within the next hour, Sister Tavalia 52 will be of an age to understand my words and her mission, I close my eyes and let go of the light. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Next up, we will be presenting a piece from The Khancept. Kamil Khan is a poet, rapper, activist, and social worker. As a first-generation immigrant to Houston from Pakistan, his poetry is unapologetically pro-immigrant, pro-justice, and pro-love. Khan, who goes by the stage name Khancept, will be reading 3 poems today. They are titled She Spoke, How Do I Mansplain This, and Woke to Death. Please join me in welcoming The Khancept.
Thank you so much for having me. A real honor to be here. This is my first time having interaction exposure to the Houston Fringe Festival, but I have a feeling it won't be the last time. So thanks for having me. The name of this first poem is called She Spoke. And so here we go. She spoke as if cadence and rhythm were consequential to their potential, serving delicacy as a cogent essential to sway a gent presumably gentle, well, until he decides when it's appropriate for him to enter. She spoke as if tomorrow was dictated by the eclipse of velvety lips and tongues cushioned with parameters. The only seat she wanted was next to Rosa or a Southern senator's. Order, order, don't judge my wall because of its borders. I made my ex pay for this. She spoke as if novelty was foreign until a passerby bid a hello, hi, used an alibi of a smooth, nice guy. Miss, I noticed the tessellated sky in the corner of your eye. She spoke as if a receiver of flirt only reciprocated worth. Does a natural connection work without background checking net words? She spoke as if the world she lived in couldn't outlive her, as if immortality was gushing out of a fountain that she donated dimes to, a de facto life insurance policy. She spoke as if she faced dire straits and added them to her mixtape. She adjusted the volume to each sound, remotely controlling the perception of self. It's all deception in itself. She spoke as if Harlem needed no renaissance and the projects where she grew up were actually worked on. A science fair winner who experimented the effect of crack and powder cocaine on the judge's gavel in his brain. She spoke as if she didn't remember the cat calling bus driver, gym teacher, dad's friend, male gynecologist, cute guy in math class, third cousin, somebody's brother, son, father, uncle. She spoke as if they never touched her. Ever. She spoke as if Susan B. Anthony found Sojourner's truth and blasted it. The frequency waves of feminist vigor. Some pro-choosers chose not to listen, chose not to give any choice, chose men to choose for women. Ain't that some choice? She spoke as if a sigh was tantamount to a reply, with hands on her mouth. Oh my, crepuscular creatures ushered in the dawn, and the conversation she spoke stayed woke with a yawn. She spoke as if an archaeologist and an astronomer shared the same profession. Both dig deeper, losing more than they found. One posing for the sky, the other for the ground. She needed neither. She spoke as if, no, I can't do this anymore. You deserve to know the truth. The truth is that she didn't speak much on that day. I spoke over her. Next poem is called, How Do I Mansplain This? Let me start with my colloquial English. What's good, ma? I'm not fronting. Why ain't you smile at me? I'm a good guy. I mean, I'll stab you in the front good. Take your agency and defend you like a man should. You see, I was taught to disrespect your emotional vacancy because I can fill it up. She prefers to see the glass full empty. At least there's no roofie in it. I sympathize, but I ain't one of those guys that gets the cookie and waves goodbye. How do I mansplain this? Actually, yes, all men. That means you and me too. We are complicit with abuse. We're abusers too. Toxic masculinity killing our brothers. We're losers too. Dispossess your possessive love and dismantle your faulty humanizing. She's somebody's mother, sister, daughter, cousin. Omit the apostrophe S. Stay blessed. She's somebody, period. So you don't get to decide how she control her period or that body that you bootylize. Damn, do you see that? But grimace with disbelief when the booty gets brutalized. How do I mansplain this? I still bump that Chris Brown joint. I need you, boo. And I watch Frank Underwood, Louis C.K., and chronic masturbators normalize Republicans like don't judge the story by the books, and Dems can be damned too, because y'all idolizing Bill. Still, for real, chill. How do I mansplain this? By shutting my mouth and opening my ears. Male feminist my ass when I keep my dick privilege this near. So no. You don't have a stick up your ass unless you gave that stick consent. Your value doesn't come with the price tag. So fuck my 2 cents. Shh. How if I mansplain this? My last poem is called Woke to Death. Woke to death. Time has stolen from my memory bank. Like wind seizing shisha smoke. Like sun-absorbing rainy cloud. I latch to an unforgettable pain that is forgetting me. Years of questioning my own relevancy. And now the trains of yesterday are leaving the station, never to remain, never to return. Smoldering flames of remorse, crackling embers from cremated hopes. Oh, grief, leave me bereaved. The mind's still now. It's so still now. To life's jamboree. I knew a songstress, and she asked me to ponder this. She said, singing my deepest pain brings my fans the greatest joy. And if they can relate to the fate that brought me love, relate to the fate that snatched it from me. Veiled in ironic tapestry, these patterns don't match, and the eggs of expectation, they start to hatch prematurely. You know, I'm still woke. I'm still awake. I'm dreaming in hypothetical platitudes, wondering if you'll ever like this dude. I'm still wondering when I'll like me. For some, love is eternal. For others who are still lovers, it's ephemeral lightning. Unrequited love. None of the above. Unrequited love. None of the above. And when you ask me, was I worth it? These desolate eyes never appraised you. They only praised you. Thank you.
Thank you to the Khancept for sharing his poetry with us. And to echo what he said before, we certainly hope it's not the last time any of you see us here at the Houston Fringe Festival. And now we are proud to welcome Stephanie St. Sanchez. Stephanie is a Houston-based performer, multimedia artist, award-winning indie filmmaker, and curator. She has made over 25 award-winning, genre-bending shorts and was the 2020 shorts producer of Q-Fest, the Houston International LGBTQ Film Festival. Her piece, Widow Smasher, is another allegedly true Texas tale. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie.
Chencha and La Huera, the window smasher. I was jealous of my older sister's generation. 10 years older than me, and she got to be around when my mother and her sisters were real hellraisers. Sure, I had heard hand-me-down stories here and there, but it was never as cool as what I imagined being there was. But this story was all mine. No one to verify its sexuality, but you know, that doesn't even really matter. You see, my grandmother and I were not close. I would like to say it was because of the language barrier. She spoke mostly Spanish, and I was raised by my parents who were taught assimilation was their patriotic duty. So, of course, I only spoke and understood English. And I never pursued her for affection, really, because she already had her favorites, and I was cool with that. Besides, back then I was young and mostly MIA from family functions because, I was a queer and I didn't want to deal with the drama. But one day, something clicked in me. Call it falling in love or just wanting to be seen, but I had decided that I was going to show up to her birthday party with my girlfriend. Happy birthday sung and the presents were opened, and I was on my 5th beer at least, and the crowd was thinning out. We were all sitting outside, and you could still feel the warmth of the sun, but the sound of the small Texas town cicadas were beginning to whirl. Looking up, I could see through the window my girlfriend had hit it off with my tia Neca, and she was helping with the dishes in the kitchen. That's when my grandmother motioned me over to her, something that she had never done. "Are you happy, mijita?" Sure, Grandma, I'm happy." She nodded up to the kitchen window. "I'm glad. It's important in life to find someone, to be with someone who makes you happy." And that was the most English I had ever heard her speak. "Chencha was like you and La Güera," which is what she called my girlfriend. Now, I didn't know who Chencha was at this point, but I decided to just go with it. Age and all. "Well, let me tell you the story of La Chencha and her La Güera, the window smasher. Chencha was my friend, and I worked in the fields with her. She was going around with La Güera, who was a school teacher, who had it in her mind to teach the women of the fields to read and write, which was not a popular idea, because of the times. She was como un feminista, ¿entiendes? Well, La Güera was a radical. She would break windows with bricks in town. Not all the time, but just sometimes. And then Deputy Crane would take her to jail, and her husband, Dr. Richard, would come and have to get her out. They even tried to run off together, but Chencha's papa found out about the whole affair, and he beat her black and blue. So La Güera took the train out of town herself and smashed the window in every town she stopped in. She was halfway to El Paso when they caught up with her and dragged her home. They decided she was too wild, and they put her away in the mental ward at St. Joe's. Later, I was out in the fields with Chencha again, and she showed me a stack of bricks that she had retrieved from the places in town La Güera had been, and La Güera had scratched their initials in each one. Well, that night she knocked her papa out with one of those bricks, and her and La Güera ran off, never to be heard from again. Maybe it was 6 beers, but I shook my head at the tale I had just heard. You see, mijita, if you have love, nothing will stop you from it. You understand? Yes, Grandma. My mind was still blown. Now see if there's any more cake left so I can have a little for my cafecito in the morning. Okay. Happy birthday, Grandma. Years had passed, so many I began to challenge my own drunken recollections. I remember telling my girlfriend the story on the way home in the car, but that's really it until now. Until our 5th wedding anniversary. It just passed, and on my desk was a bright red brick with our initials on it. Ready to keep smashing love.
Thank you for sharing that story with us, Stephanie. For the 2nd time this evening, the Houston Fringe Festival would like to welcome JT Morse to the screen.
Thank you, Lauren. What a great story, Stephanie. My goodness, so powerful. All right, this one is entitled The Box. Head held high, I step into the light. Dust swirls at my feet as scents of sweet and salty commingle in the air. A hush falls all around, and I take one last deep breath. A final inhalation before I disappear. Sometimes I wish to be consumed, wish my lungs would constrict to the point of suffocation, allowing me to stay hidden in the box's embrace forever. No going back, no returning to life in this vacuous realm. A lost soul floating among twinkling night stars, freed from bondage, suffering, and most especially from fear. On other days, I dread losing the light. The lid closing on my yesterdays, todays, and tomorrows, being lost in the malaise and ennui where my mind collapses and nothingness consumes my heart. Jean-Jacques takes my lace-gloved hand, and I pirouette 3 times, then he lifts me high over his fiery red chapeau. Bracing his shoulders beneath bare toes, I strike an arabesque pose for the audience to admire. Cameras flash and applause erupts, but they have no idea what's about to transpire. The posters and programs make no mention of the hidden nature of the big top center ring. If only they knew, would they still buy a ticket? His brawny shoulders underneath my worn soles, I push off and leap high in the air, as high as humanly possible, as if gravity has no hold on me. In younger years, my stomach lurched and twisted as I flew and flipped in the moment of release. Now, I feel empty. No twinge of excitement, no flicker of fear as I arch my back and dive into the cavernous maw of my cage, my solace, my benevolent prison box. While I'm certain the crowd gasps in horror and flinches in empathetic reflex, I don't hear or see them, not a peep. All I hear is the whoosh of darkness as I swim down into the abyss, down into a place where time has no authority and life may or may not cease to exist. On the surface, should anyone curiously open the box, they would see a body twisted and contorted into a cube-like anomaly no bigger than one of Papa's splintered wooden orange crates. But she is not me, the box-shaped creature. She is what I leave behind when I slip into otherness, a mere shell of myself, a shadow of my being. In truth, I am below, underneath the veil of knowing, in a shallow yet vast plane of singularity, a quantum mystery. No longer human, no longer woman, no longer anything anyone could trace. Once, in the early days of honing my big top act, I asked my teacher, Lady Akimbo, what she thought about while holding her breath in the box's embrace. She said not a word, only presented a weak smile, then averted her eyes. I never asked again. She never gave an answer. 3 days later, she died by her own hand, bequeathing to me the mystical box left behind. Through my youth, in long day rehearsals and nighttime work sessions, my thoughts would venture to sunshine and Ferris wheels and joys other girls, non-circus girls, partook in. Normal, mundane, everyday lives, the jealousy helping me master holding my breath. But on the day I performed my public debut with the box, something changed within me, something deep inside. Diving into the box felt different somehow than it had in rehearsals. Strange, askew, bizarrely revealing. Everything had gone as planned, or so I'd thought, but the bottom dropped out when I dove in and I sank into a new abyss. Initially, I panicked. Who wouldn't? Flailing, I kicked my skinny legs, flapped featherless arms, and flexed thin fingers, feeble attempts to save my puny self. Lungs burned, eyes bulged. I knew I was dying. How one knows they're dying is a curious thing, inexplicable. But I knew. How could I not? Eventually, I stopped fighting and gave into the currents of the invisible river. Floating in the dark turned out to be quite peaceful. The tranquility of silence and serenity of non-existence greeted me with open arms and a straitjacket, in equal measure swaddling me like the mother I'd never had, and trapping me in terror like Amos Barlow behind the Barker's booth did when I was 10. Feelings warred within me, tearing me emaciated limb from limb. As soon as elation abandoned my soul, depression stepped in to knock the remaining life from my lungs. As trepidation released its grip on my mind, hope scooped me up for a delightful fling on the trapeze. After an eternity and mere seconds, a light appeared in the distance. I clutched at the black swaths of space around me and clawed my way toward the striking beacon in the distant remoteness. Then I saw Jean-Jacques' thick-knuckled hand. I reached and grasped his wrist with the safety grip all circus children learn before they can even speak or barely walk. He pulled, I pushed, and as though nothing out of the ordinary had happened, I emerged into the spotlight, Center stage, crowd applauding. As expected, I took my curtsy and sucked air into aching fringe-worn lungs. I didn't know exactly how long I'd been gone, yet it didn't matter since I'd at some point found a miraculous way to reappear, alive, unharmed, and existentially reimagined. My show night voyages into the box have become somewhat standard. Swan diving midnight, I no longer struggle, no longer fight misfortune, no longer wonder if I'll return. I relax into the nothingness and quietly contort my body until I laconically, verbotenly, and wistfully disappear. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that story with us. Next up, we will be presenting a piece from Reyes Ramirez. Reyes is a Houstonian of Mexican and Salvadoran descent. He recently won the 2019 Yes Contemporary Arts Writers Grant, and his poems, stories, essays, and reviews have been featured in a myriad of publications. Please join me in welcoming Reyes Ramirez.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. If you're tuning in live, thank you for, despite everything going on, thank you for coming in and listening to all of us. So I appreciate that. So the story I'm going to read is called The Latinx Paradox within Joaquin Salvatierra. Joaquin Salvatierra looked up at the sky that resembled an alligator's eye. He didn't like staring into the iris too long, as it felt like a god was watching everything decay and didn't care to do anything. Yeah, se acabó todo, Primex, Joaquin's first sergeant, Fernando Montserrat, once lamented before whistling and kicking the dirt beneath. In Joaquin's defense, whatever was left in front of him wasn't much more hopeful to look at either. The thing about his Mark 12 suit was that even though it was a slower and heavier model than the Mark 11, the 50 caliber minigun upgrade built into its arm could shred a body like a tomato in a blender. In fact, Joaquin had the only Mark 12 suit on his squad, testing its first ever use in the field. Joaquin's squad mates nicknamed the mecha suit El Poderoso, and true to its name, what remained of Lieutenant Charles Armstrong was absolutely fucked up beyond all recognition. The plates of Lieutenant Armstrong's Mark 6 could barely repel the bullets from a standard 7.62 by 51 heavy machine gun, so the 50 cal left behind enough scraps of flesh, metal, and blood to put half a man back together again, all pooled up in the crater created by the bullets. Everyone in Joaquin's squad was speechless until Private Julio Guevara broke the silence. What the fuck was that? No jodes, man. Hiciste un pinche desmadre, Salvatierra, Private Guevara yells. Joaquin stifles a laugh, hearing Julio freaking out over his radio, but his mecha standing absolutely still. Joaquin doesn't respond and can only think about the consequences of his actions. He looks up at the eye again, tries to think of how he'll explain this to his superiors. This could be chalked up to a malfunction in Joaquin's mecha suit. It was protocol that the transgression of one Latinx overrules all the other qualities. Joaquin must get his story straight. This is what he has so far. You see, what happened was that as our squad, comprising of myself, Sergeant Montserrat, Private Guevara, Specialist Gomez, and Lieutenant Armstrong, was running reconnaissance, sirs, and an enemy insurgent fired a rocket that hit Specialist Gomez directly. We returned fire at the orders of Lieutenant Armstrong and neutralized all targets. Specialist Gomez reported feeling unwell. Lieutenant Armstrong implored continuing recon. An hour or so later, sirs, Specialist Gomez stated that he could no longer continue. Lieutenant Armstrong ran his vitals and found no irregularities in the report. Specialist Gomez's Mark 9 suit produced. Lieutenant Armstrong ordered Specialist Gomez to press on. I don't recall how much time elapsed when Specialist Gomez's suit powered down. He then communicated that the force of the rocket must have ruptured one of his organs because a great pain in his gut prevented him from being able to control the suit. We then noticed that blood seeped out of a crack in his armor. Lieutenant Armstrong ran another report on his Mark 9 and agreed that that was what must have happened. During the report, Specialist Gomez died. Lieutenant Armstrong noted this and said Mission Control demanded the return of the suit for repair. When Sergeant Montserrat inquired on what to do about Specialist Gomez's body, Lieutenant Armstrong ordered it removed from the suit. Lieutenant Armstrong overrode the controls of Specialist Gomez's Mark 9 and opened its entry hatch. Blood poured out in steaming heaps, trailing out of his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Specialist Gomez's eyes remained open. Lieutenant Armstrong ordered Private Guevara remove Specialist Gomez's body. Private Gomez hesitated. When Private Guevara did not fulfill his directive, Lieutenant Armstrong threatened to have him killed. Lieutenant Armstrong then ordered Sergeant Montserrat to raise his weapon at Private Guevara and fire when he counted down from 3. If he would not, then Lieutenant Armstrong would have Sergeant Montserrat court-martialed. 3. Sergeant Montserrat did not raise his weapon. 2. Private Guevara still did not move. 1. Lieutenant Armstrong raised his weapon at Sergeant Montserrat. I can't recall what happened next. I remember hearing a swarm of bees. I regained control afterward. So you're saying it's the suit's fault? Joaquin can imagine one of his superiors asking. Yes, he says. He sees himself saying like a fucking idiot. Could not be helped. Not my fault. Yes. Great. Fantastic. Está bien, mijo. Todo bien, Sergeant Montserrat finally assured, chanting over and over on the squad's frequency. Todo bien. Tranquilo, mijo. Todo bien. Specialist Gomez is still in his bodysuit, his body all out of blood. A red light blinks near his contorted face, indicating the suit is still operational but out of energy. He seems to be deeply sleeping now, so deep that it hurts. The gore and bits of Lieutenant Armstrong droop off rocks and leaves. Está bien. Todo bien, mijo. What the fuck are we going to do, Sergeant Montserrat, sir? Private Guevara still asks. It's a good question, as there are many timelines that can sprout from here. 1. Sergeant Fernando Montserrat would face a court-martial for being the highest-ranking Latinx member of the squad and having a white man die under his directions. Though Lieutenant Armstrong was in command, the responsibility lied entirely in Sergeant Montserrat to keep other Latinxes under control. The suits would have on record that Sergeant Montserrat hesitated carrying out his order, making it clear that not keeping Private Guevara in check was what led to Joaquin's malfunction. Sergeant Montserrat would be stripped of his rank, pay, pension, and be assigned work until death. His family, a wife and 3 children, would be left destitute. 2. Joaquin Salvatierra would simply be killed. His killing of a white man would not be tolerated by white soldiers. Perhaps Salvatierra could make the argument that the suit had drained him of his energy and faculties, but his near instinctual killing of a white man would run contrary to all of his training and programming. To absolve Joaquin's killing of Lieutenant Armstrong for his larger usefulness would be to admit that a brown man's contributions meant more than a white life. 3. Private Guevara would be court-martialed and sentenced to labor until death. And those are the best case scenarios. Once, Joaquin's superiors ordered all the Latinx troops to file up in formation to watch an AWOL soldier march naked outside. The air slowly stripped away his skin by pieces. He collapsed, and his body decayed at 5 times the speed a normal body decomposes. His particles rose to the sky, like rain from the ground sucked into clouds. Sergeant Montserrat is the first to move. He walks over to Specialist Gomez's body and raises his suit's right arm above Specialist Gomez's Mark 9, pointer fingertip touching thumb, and then brings his arm down, maintaining the touch of his 2 robotic digits, swings it upward to the left, then cuts it straight across to the right. Sergeant Montserrat returns his arm to the center of his cross he conjured and releases his digits. He says, "Que Dios bendiga Arturo Gomez." Joaquin had never seen anything like this. All the other brown soldiers he'd seen die were disposed of like bullet casings. Is this what it's supposed to be like? Private Guevara, quiet this whole time, asks again, what are we going to do? ¿Qué quieres que te digo? Sergeant Montserrat answers. Anything, hombre. Shit. Lie to me. Tell me we're going to be okay. Something. Algo. ¿Te calmas o te calmo, Guevara? Salvatierra, ¿tienes algo que decir sobre esto? All Joaquin could think about was what life he lived that led to this moment. He didn't feel bad for shooting Lieutenant Armstrong. In fact, a breeze blew across his body, even though his suit was sealed shut. The alligator's eye stared down at all of this. Joaquin Salvatierra can't remember when or where he was born. His earliest memory is sitting in a classroom with other students in a pure white room wearing matching white jumpsuits. Their brown skin stood out. Their name tags hung on black string lanyards. On a whiteboard, a white teacher taught them in black marker, math, science, history, English. 2 + 2 is 4. A sentence contains a subject and a verb. The new United States formed in 2050. Joaquin and his classmates noticed the names mentioned were nothing like theirs. Looking back, Joaquin realized that the first mistake in all this was letting everyone keep their names. Soledad Villalobos, Xiomara de Luna, Noé Martinez, Alejandro Cienfuegos, etc. When not in the classroom, Joaquin and his classmates were in their white rooms or training. They were taught everything about the suits. You enter them by stepping up the knee plate, turning around, and falling backwards into its 10-foot frame. You must make sure the suit's seal is secure as the ozone has eroded, and the sun's radiation would cause an extremely painful death. Wait until the interface booted up and linked up with your brain's patterns. This results in a half second of lag between a user's will and the suit's action. Through this brain link, each suit in a squad connected on a neural network to operate cohesively as a unit. Joaquin's first suit was the Mark VI, the very model Lieutenant Armstrong wore, which includes a square HUD inside the helmet. At this time, white soldiers could only operate the Mark III. Any models above would require extensive training for years, severely limiting the speed and scope of the Reconquista, as the new United States termed its global campaign to conquer other nations. It was discovered that non-white soldiers could pilot the suits for much longer and more accurately. No explanation could be found, nor was it wanted. When Joaquin and his classmates could operate the Mark VI at the age of 14, the research and development of mecha suits expanded exponentially. The Mark 11 that Sergeant Montserrat wields as an adult released only prior to this moment. Joaquin had tested and mastered it by the age of 17. The main difference between models was how much energy each suit required from its user. The higher the suit model, the more streamlined the suit's battery could hold a charge from a human body. This new suit was tailor-made for Joaquin. The suit could respond and carry out Joaquin's thoughts and motions instantaneously, operating more as an extension of himself. In a way, Joaquin knew what was going to happen today. He'd worked with Sergeant Montserrat before. He was fighting to become a full person, a deal extended by the new United States to non-whites if they served in the Reconquista for 20 years. Sergeant Montserrat told Joaquin he knew that the deal was basura, that no one like him sat behind desks. Cada persona tiene su número aquí, he said. Why are you doing this then? Joaquin asked. Esta tierra ya no es para los humanexes, joven. Los demonios corren todo, y yo hago lo que yo tengo que hacer para sobrevivir. Joaquin's connection to Sergeant Montserrat was always tenuous, because he could always sense that Sergeant Montserrat never said everything. I don't think he even believes all that. Though Joaquin never fully trusted Sergeant Montserrat, he still felt attached to El Viejo because only he knew the closest thing to a reality before the current world they lived in. El cielo fue azul y tuvimos un Dios. Did we? Before embarking on today's mission, Sergeant Montserrat gave Joaquin a necklace with a pendant that resembled a plus sign. No, no más me sirve, joven. Tómalo, hasta que yo no lo necesites. Then what is it good to me? However, Joaquin appreciated this material connection that made them both bigger than before. He had never felt something like this and wanted to protect it. When Lieutenant Armstrong raised his weapon against Sergeant Montserrat, Joaquin could see everything happen before it happened. He saw each bullet puncture Armstrong's suit and tear flesh from bone like a flower's petals into the wind. Maybe there are no mistakes. Tienes que ir, mijo, Sergeant Montserrat said to wake Joaquin from his trance. Vete. They'll kill you straight up, Private Guevara chimed in. Just take the suit and run. What about you two? Joaquin asked. Yo tengo familia que no puedo abandonar. Y un día uniré contigo, pero no hoy. Te lo juro. Vete, mijo. You know hay más que este país te puede dar. Joaquin Salvatierra finally felt conflicted about something. He knew he was nothing more than a means to an end for his country, but he was scared to leave it. But Sergeant Montserrat was right. You said there were others like you, right? Private Guevara asked Joaquin. Maybe link up with them. We'll say enemies captured you and killed Armstrong. They can't recover his footage now that you've turned him into liquid shit. It's your only chance. Empieza algo nuevo, mijo. After they leave, Joaquin Salvatierra thought of what to do next. He didn't think trying to connect with his classmates was a bad idea. Theoretically, he could patch into the other Mark 12's unique frequencies, but that would take time. For now, Joaquin had to get his thoughts straight. I am of a nation, but I cannot be of it. Of what use is that to me? Joaquin, is that you? Joaquin's HUD brightens, and a panel opens to show a live video feed from inside Xiomara de Luna's suit. It's her face. Xiomara was special. Everyone knew that from the moment they laid eyes on her. Her most distinguishing feature was a mole between her eyes. In class, the instructors would force her to cover it up as rumors spread that it gave her power. Pure superstition or not, Xiomara was always the smartest. If anyone could have figured out how to connect suit frequencies this fast, it would be Xiomara. Xiomara, yeah, it's me. We have to talk. Whatever you do, don't go back to base. I'm way ahead of you on that, Joaquin says. Good. Here are my coordinates. Going to try to patch in others. Meet me ASAP. Will do. Be careful. The feed ends. This could all be a trap. Who knows who is on which side? Maybe the others will force us to go back. What if I have to raise my weapon at one of us? He heads to Xiomara's coordinates. What else do I have? He remembers the pendant Sergeant Montserrat gave him. The two intersecting lines. There are no mistakes. Joaquin looks up at the alligator's eye. It is still up there, staring down at him. He breathes in with anxiety and exhales with hope, like a pitcher overflowing with water. The eye closes. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that story with us today. For our last performance this evening, we will be welcoming Margo Stutts Toombs back to the screen.
Thank you. And I want to thank the Fringe Festival and all the writers for making tonight possible. This has been a very joyful end to a joyful day, and I appreciate being able to participate. I'm going to read a poem, and it is called, "What is a Virus Really?" I just rewatched Men in Black #1. You know, the original, with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. The movie gods call it a science fiction action comedy film. Or is it a cautionary tale? Let's explore. Interplanetary refugees live on Earth. All wear human disguises. Tiny and tall, large and small, they all fit in. When the camera zooms in on a pendant, on a cat's neck, we see a galaxy, a full galaxy with stars and planets and moons. Spoiler alert. At the end of the movie, the camera pans out until we see the Earth within a galaxy, within a universe, within a universe, within a universe, within a marble, used as sports by monsters. In this world of giants, we are microbes. Now reverse our symbiotic spaceship, travel back to our home. All of this celestial traveling makes me wonder, are we the Earth's viruses, consuming and destroying our host? Are the bacteria and viruses in our bodies part of the microscopic universes? In Star Wars, what takes priority? The largest, the strongest, the cleverest? In our battle with COVID-19, are we Goliath to its David? Will we crush it with brute force? Will it break us with slingshots and stones and ignorance? Thank you.
Thank you, Margo, and thank you to all of our writers. Before I announce the winner, I'd like to thank all of the participating writers, those who submitted pieces to be read tonight, those who were on today and were selected to perform, for being part of this year's Houston Fringe Festival, and for sharing your stories with us this evening. We hope that storytelling on the Fringe becomes an integral part of the Houston Fringe Festival as we work together to elevate the Houston literary scene. Amidst everything going on during this election week and in the middle of a global pandemic, we are so thankful to have such incredible artists willing to share their works with us during the Houston Fringe Festival's virtual season, and to everyone who is tuned in to support these artists and to watch their pieces as they perform. Just a reminder that these pieces will live on Facebook, so you can stream them as much as you'd like before the festival ends, and you can also view them online. All of the recordings will live there as well. The winner of this year's Storytelling on the Fringe was selected by representatives from WriteSpace, DeFunkt Magazine, and Texlandia. These representatives had their own scoring narrative and reasons behind their choices, although we're very impressed by all the pieces submitted this year. The caliber was exceptional, and again, we cannot thank you writers enough for submitting. We hope that you'll join us again at Houston Fringe Festival and that we see your work again in the future. Houston Fringe Festival is proud to announce this year's Storytelling on the Fringe writer is Reyes Ramirez with the Latinx Paradox with Joaquin Salvatierra. Congratulations, Reyes, and congratulations to all of our writers. We hope to see you again, hopefully in person at next year's Houston Fringe Festival. Reyes, I'll give you a second if you have anything that you'd like to say.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you so much. It's an honor. Thank you for everyone else for being part of this. I'm amongst really talented people. So again, thank you so much for including me on this. And that's it. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. And to our audience, please visit tonight's events details on Facebook to learn more about each artist and for a link to their websites and artists. Please feel free to contribute anything you'd like for anyone to see in the comments of this video. We'd love for the audience, as this video makes its rounds, to be able to support you in any way that they can. We still have one day of Fringe Festival performances. We hope that you'll join us tomorrow at 3 p.m. for an incredible dance piece by Loren Holmes titled Dignity in Death. Please check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram at Houston Fringe Festival for more information on our 2 performances tomorrow, to view all of our past performances, including tonight's, and for information on how to donate to keep Houston Fringe arts alive. We'd also like to do one last plug for tomorrow night's in-person, socially distanced performance of Anything Goes, our roundup big closing performance at the Pet Outdoor Theaters in the Heights. Some of our writers showcased here tonight will be there, and we'll have dancers, some spoken word pieces, a comedy act. It's going to be really incredible. So we hope you can come out and join us. Again, the link for that is in the comments to this video. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening and that you stay safe out there.